Hello. Thank you for joining the 5-minute Bible study today in the book of Colossians. Today we're going to be in chapter 2. We're going to start in verse 16. If you get a chance, go ahead, open up your Bibles, take a look at the whole context of what we'll be reading here. That would be verse 16 through 23, which is the end of the chapter. Take a look at that so you can have a full understanding of what Paul's trying to say here, because he's going to be starting a brand new thought, what the whole letter really is about, which is arguing against the false teachers who have come into the church at Colossae and trying to teach the Colossians wrong things. Let's take a look at what some of those things are. Verse 16 says this: Therefore, no one is to act as your judge in regard to food or drink, or in respect to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath day. So there we see several things going on that the false teachers are teaching. But let's go right to the beginning of this verse, and it starts with therefore. We spoke about this yesterday. Therefore what? Well, therefore is that all these things we've been talking about, all these things Paul has written about, specifically about Jesus up to this point, who Jesus is, what he has done, what God has done through Jesus, the benefits to us of what God has done through Jesus. Therefore, these things. And what are these things? Well, first we see, do not let anyone judge you. So the church is being judged by who? By these false teachers. They've come in and they've said, you're doing the wrong things. You're not believing the right things. Let us tell you what the right things are. And they've come in and they've told them at least these 5 things. Could be more, but at least these 5 things. Will be more. We'll find out. And what are these 5 things that they're specifically saying, that Paul's specifically arguing against here? Well, they're judging them on what they're eating and what they're drinking, first of all. So as we look at all of these things, it certainly seems to have a Jewish feel to it. It certainly seems to have some Old Testament rules and regulations there. And certainly it's true that there are kosher laws regarding what we can eat and what we can drink, what can go together. So we don't eat milk with meat, that sort of thing. But actually in the Bible, we see things like how to drink wine, or really when you cannot drink wine, like if you're taking a Nazirite vow, or how to drink properly, or what to drink in terms of a sacrifice as part of the religious rituals. So we do see definitely that there's some food and drink regulations in the Old Testament. However, it's probably not going to be valid that the church at Colossae is doing those things. They're probably not drinking incorrectly or eating incorrectly. Probably more so, this isn't pointing to the Jewish rules and regulations as part of the law of Moses. Instead, it's probably pointing to the pagan, the Roman, the Greek concept of asceticism. That's that concept that, oh, we have to discipline our bodies. We need to discipline ourselves. And by disciplining ourselves, we gain spiritual insight and spiritual favor from the gods. So that's probably really what this is talking about. So they're probably coming in there and seeing the Colossians eating and drinking like normal and saying, you can't do that. You have to watch what you eat and only eat these certain foods at these certain times, and not enough of it, but just a little of it. And same with the drinking. So this is probably very much about asceticism. Then the next few things we see definitely look like Jewish thought. It's new moons, festivals, Sabbaths. And we actually see those 3 things together several times in the Old Testament, speaking about these things. And those are basically holidays in the Bible that God has prescribed. The New Moon Festival is the festival that will occur at the first of every month. Because remember, in the Jewish calendar, it's a lunar calendar, so it's every 28 days. So it's a very specific celebration. It's the end of the month or the beginning of the month, and on that day, the new moon, which would be the first, celebrate. So we see that in the Bible. So we see that as one of the things that the Jews were supposed to do. And of course, the festivals like Passover and And Pentecost, or what we call Pentecost, they call the Feast of Weeks, or the Tabernacles, any of those would have been the festivals. And it sounds like these people had a syncretistic religion. In other words, a little bit of Christianity with Jesus, a little bit of Judaism with these things, a little bit of paganism with the other things. And they're trying to put it all together. So they're coming into the Christian church saying, you need to do all these things. It's not enough. But Paul specifically says, therefore, in other words, because Christ has done all these things, don't be judged by these people. In other words, it is enough. So you don't have to do all those things that these false teachers are telling you. So that's what starts out this section here. We're going to read some more about some of the other things that the pagans were teaching them. But for today, that finishes our teaching on verse 16. So come back tomorrow as we go into verse 17 and see a little bit more about what Paul has to say about the false teachers. If you have any comments, thoughts, or comments or questions, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Until then, have a wonderful day, and God bless you.